Hey everyone, and I hope all of you are doing well. So if that is your first video on my channel, then welcome, and I hope that you will enjoy the content of this video. And if you will enjoy the content here, please consider hitting the like button and as well as commenting on that video so we could really spread this video across more people. Okay, so in this video I'm going to talk about YAML files and why do we need them, and as well as how this could be an improvement for your projects. Now I'm going to cover everything that is related to YAML syntax and as well as showing some real life examples so you could really understand why do we even need to work with YAML files. Let's get started. Alright, so let's explain what are YAML files and why do we need them. So YAML files made for storing key-value pairs in human-readable syntax. Now the case that a developer will write a YAML file in his project would be to separate between actual source code of some project, between necessary configurations that you might want to keep them versatile and being separated from the actual source code. So say that I have a program that sends me automatic messages on my social media account every 5 seconds, and I don't want to get too much annoyed by these automatic messages, so one day I might decide that I want to increase the interval time, so to actually have a separation between this kind of configuration to the logic code itself is actually a great idea, because now the only thing that I have to do is changing the key value pair in my YAML file, which is also dependent in the source code of the project. So to actually simulate you an example of that, then I'm going to show you a service that I developed that really sends me some automatic updates every 5 seconds. So as you can see, I see a lot of logs here that are being appeared, and you can see that it says waiting 5 seconds before next message. Now if I was to change this to 8 and save that file, then you could see that this information is already going to be updated and I don't really have to change the source code of my actual program. So this is exactly where you might want to consider having a separation between different configurations of your projects rather than keeping them in the source code itself. So actually to having a separated YAML file for those scenarios could be extremely helpful for you. Alright, so let's actually go ahead and write some YAML file from scratch, and that will really help you to understand everything that you need to know about writing and maintaining YAML files. So now I'm going to use PyCharm as my IDE, because in my opinion it has a great syntax highlighting, but you can use whatever IDE you want to follow along with me. Okay, so I'm going to create a new file here and I'm going to name it conf like that. Now pay attention that some people might use the extension of YAML, but if you are lazy like me and you only want to write 3 letters, then you can go with YML, and that is also perfectly fine. And now I can press enter in here and continue writing some YAML information. Alright, so first, sometimes you might see YAML files that are starting with 3 dashes like that. Well, actually I searched a lot for the reason of this, and it seems like this is a signal among all the text files out there that declares that this is going to be a YAML file. But unless you got the extension right like me, then this is not actually something that you have to do in each YAML file. Okay, so to create some random key values in here, then we can start saying name equals to John like that. Now I want you to pay attention that I used the space in here, and it is quite important because YAML expects for a space after the colon sign when you provide the key name. And actually there is not going to be a difference if you provide inside of that double quotes or single quotes or without anything. Basically, most of the programming languages are going to understand that this is actually a string, especially Python, but it is more recommended to actually use at least one of the approaches. So I will just go with single quotes like that. Alright, so now we can continue on and add some more information in that YAML file. So say that I want to describe the age and I can make that to be equal to something like 35, and I can also go with something is underscore mail true like that. Now, actually, YAML will be fine if you provide the Boolean type of information capitalized as well, but you want to follow one convention and really stick to one of the available conventions in YAML. So I really recommend to use true or false like that. Okay, so let's actually revert this to true and continue from here. Okay, so say that till that point you don't feel enough confident that you use the syntax correctly. Now, not all the IDEs have the feature of error highlighting, and this is true especially when you write YAML files. So to overcome this, I really recommend you to use a website that is called YAMLValidator.com, and you can just paste your YAML there and check what is wrong. Okay, so I'm already inside a website that is called YAMLValidator.com, as I said, and you can see that the information in here is just the information that we wrote till that point. And then you can see that it says us valid YAML, so it means that we don't have any errors. But if we were to delete the white space between name to John, so let's actually do that, then you can automatically see that it recognizes some errors and the YAML syntax considered as wrong in that case. So you really want to keep your YAML files as clean as possible, so that is why this website could really be a useful one. Now, as you can see, those three key value pairs are somehow connected to each other, because as you could understand, I am describing here some person, so in that case it is more common to move all the key value pairs to be an object, so it will be easier to read. And also other people could understand that those key values are truly describing some person, so we could type in above those person and we could add the colon sign and we could move all those key value pairs under the person object that I just declared. So it will be as easy as hitting the tab right before the key value pairs. And now as you can see that the PyCharm already gives a highlighting for this person object. So now it is a lot easier to understand that we describe some person and we give some key value pairs for that person. So it is important to understand that the indentation in here is quite required, so that way those three key value pairs will belong to that person object. Okay, so now that we understood that those are three key value pairs, mainly attributes, now let's say that you want to specify some more information about this person, but you would like to provide multiple values for that specific information, basically just reaching the behavior of an array or a list. So you could say here, for example, lucky underscore numbers, something like that, and then you want to start giving some values to that lucky numbers. Now when YAML sees the dash right before the value, then it is going to parse it as an array in whatever language you parse this YAML file. So it will know to look up for the belonged name in here, which is lucky numbers, and it will know to store values within an array that will be named lucky numbers. So I could provide some lucky numbers here like 9, and I could also continue on to say 19, 24, 23, and 20 like that. And now whenever you are going to parse this entire YAML file, then you are going to see that the lucky numbers is going to be like an array with 5 elements inside of it. So you could reach this behavior by adding dashes before the value that you provide in. Alright, so now that we understood that the lucky numbers is going to behave like a list of elements, now let's understand how we can provide in some more complex information. And let's say that I want to include some more info like the programming languages that this person knows. But now say that we want to include for each programming language some more key value pairs like name and its released year. So for that case, we should have a list of objects. And the way that it is going to work it is going to work with the following way. So I could say in here, programming underscore languages like that. And now I'm going to scroll down a bit so you can see better. And now I'm going to say here again, dash, and then I'm going to hit name colon sign, and then I'm going to type in here C#, for example. And now, like I said before, when YAML sees the dash, then it is going to be just like an element inside an array. And now I can continue on and actually extend this list to be an object that is including some key value pairs. So now I could also say here released year equals to 2000, like that. Now, excuse me for saying equals to, basically I refer to colon sign and not actually the equal sign like that. Okay, so now that we understood that this programming languages is going to be a list of key value pairs, let's actually repeat ourselves 2 more times because we want to put in some more programming languages that this person knows. So I'm going to copy this from here and I'm going to paste this in like that. Now pay attention how I am clean when I work with YAML files, because the indentation is quite equal to what I have wrote in here. So now I could change this, for example, to Python, and I could change this to the actual released year like 1991, and we could say here Java as well, and we could say here 1996. And again, it is very important to understand the difference between programming languages to the lucky numbers. The lucky numbers will result in to be basically just a pure list of 5 integers. Okay, so by the way, you could pay attention that you can comment your YAML files. So it is very important to understand that, because not all the configuration files that are existing out there are supporting commenting. So for example, in JSON files, you might have heard that it does not support commenting within the file itself. So this is something quite helpful with YAML. So again, the lucky numbers is basically a list of 5 integers, but the programming languages is a list of 3 objects that includes some key and value pairs. Okay, so it is very important to differentiate between the behavior of programming languages to lucky numbers. And as I said earlier, this will result in to be a string key value pair, and this will be integer key value pair, and this will be boolean key value pair, like that. Now we could also type in some more information with floating numbers. I know that I did not mention, but that is quite obvious. So if we were to say here weight, and then we could basically say 72.5 like that, and this will be floating number key value pair, like that. Okay, so now that we created a basic YAML file, then we are ready to show how this is going to be parsed within some programming language. Now I'm going to show an example with Python, because Python is actually very friendly when it comes to parsing YAML files. But don't worry too much if you never programmed with Python, and if you have a basic knowledge of programming, then you should be very fine to understand what I'm going to show now. Alright, so in the following example I'm going to show you how Python could read YAML files. Now as you can see up top here, I'm importing some libraries, and the first one is actually YAML, which is required to run this command before. So make sure that if you have Python installed and you want to test things by yourself, you first have to execute pip install pyyaml like that. And I also import the pprint library, which will allow us to see better results of whatever information we are going to print. And as you can see, those 2 lines are responsible to open the file that its name is conf.yaml, and this line in here is responsible to really have the parsing of this YAML file. And you can do this with the save_load method in Python. And as the final line here, you can see that I'm printing this parse_YAML variable, which is declared in here. And if I actually go ahead and run that program, let's see the results of that. So you can see that this starts from a big dictionary that starts from here and finishes in here. So you can also see that we have all the information like expected in here. And as you can see, for example, lucky numbers is really translated into a list with some values, and as well as the programming languages, it resulted in to be a list with 3 dictionaries like we have expected. So it is quite important to understand those. And if we actually want to access some specific key, then we can do this with accessing it using square brackets. Now, if you know a little bit about dictionaries in Python, then you can provide in the key name that you want to see its value. So if I was to say here person, then you can see that the information that we receive is only about this person. And now if we want to see only the age of this person, then we could create another square brackets and access one more key, let's say age, and this will only print us 35. Now I could do the same thing with lucky numbers like that, and this will result into only display the list. And we could do the exact same thing with programming languages, and as you can see, this shows us a list with 3 dictionaries, which is exactly what is happening in here in this YAML file. So I hope that this explanation was clear about Python. Now I'm not going to show in each programming languages how you can read YAML files, but I will leave some links in the description about C#, Java and Golang, how you can read YAML files with those programming languages. So if you want to check this out with another programming language, then make sure to go down to the description and visit those links. Okay everyone, so I hope you enjoyed this video and now you'll feel more confident with YAML files. Now don't worry about the code in here. Basically I will provide some additional links where you can access the code that we have wrote here, so don't worry about that if you want to see that later. Okay, so if you like this video, please hit the like button and also consider subscribing to my channel if you already did not. And I will see you in my future uploads.